you have 25 producers on a project, 10 of them might be brand new. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand the music business. They could mess everything up.
I was in a conversation with some folks here at Two Lost that needed to pull a project down because they had some issues with the producer and they were going back and forth. So the end result was, all right, we'll just take it down.
Good morning. What's going down? Actually, it's not morning for a lot of you. What's up? It's DJ Payne, one. I'm back with Erinn Knight and Dame Ritter. It's the At Odds podcast. And in case you're not familiar with what we give away every single episode, free music distribution, free premium music distribution. So if you have beats sitting around, if you have songs sitting around, if you just haven't pulled the trigger on releasing music because you don't know how to and you don't want to deal with paying for a distributor, then glad you're tuned in. You can go to twolost.com, use the code ATODDS, get 3 free months of premium music distribution. 3 months is a long time. You can get a lot of music up. You can learn how the systems work. You can schedule your releases in advance, and it's free. So there's really no downside to this. And if you don't want to continue using that distributor, then your music's still going to stay up. So that's the beauty of it all. There's a lot going on, I feel like, in the music business right now. How is everyone feeling?
I got a request. I gotta ask our audience to give me some suggestions because we're going back and forth on this name for a tour that Two Lost is supporting, but it'll be Ray Daniels and myself and Nyla. It's basically a non-conference conference. So it's like a pop-up conference. There'll be no panels. If you're not coming to actually be involved, then I guess there'll still be something to take away from it, but come prepared to get involved, be involved in all the activities. But I need a name for this. I need a name. If anybody has a name, I'll give you a year of music, free music distribution. I need a clever name. So, put it in the or DM me actually, at dame.mec. So this is going to take place in September. Late September. So it's something I'm looking forward to. So it should be cool. It's either going to be real cool or it's going to.
So it's a non-tour. So it's only in one location.
No, it's a tour. So it'll be four. Ray wanted to do Atlanta, DC, New York, and Philly.
There are so many ways to play off the Lost motif here as a tour. Yeah. So I don't know if we want to make it too Lost because it's kind of Ray's thing. So it's gonna be Two Lost Presents. So yeah, we'll need to figure out, but it should be cool. Ray obviously, very charismatic, has a lot of stories. So he won't be short for words at all. But just to give people an example, we have a session called Rollout where we'll be asking people if they have music coming out in the next week, 2 weeks, month, and we'll come up with rollout strategies on the spot collectively. So that's one of the activities. So it'll be stuff like that. So not only will that person get kind of a free rollout strategy from us collectively in the room, but people will just kind of hear how some people think about their rollout strategies and hopefully apply some of those things to what they're doing. So be on the lookout for more info.
That's super exciting. I'm excited to see that.
So yeah, it should be cool. I'm like I said, I'm looking forward to it. But what's up with you, Erinn? How are you doing? I know you're at DreamCon recently.
Yes, I actually had 4 or 5 events in Austin last week. 2 of them were DreamCon specific. The other 2 were just regular programming that I run. So it was great. It was a great week. Very busy, dealing with new partners and partnerships and brand deals. It's a lot to juggle. It's like everybody's like, oh, I can't wait till I start closing brand deals. Some of them are super easy. I want to shout out Liquid Death. That's one of the easiest brand deals I've ever done in my life. They have some of the best branding. Just a great team. And just started working with Johnny Walker too. Also incredible. Not to say that my other partners aren't incredible, but it's just so much to manage a bunch of conversations with people and then logistics and working with the city of Austin, there are things that I think I dreamed about, but I really just romanticized them because being the head of a business and multiple times over, it's just like there's so many challenges. So I'm learning a lot right now. I'm grateful. I'm learning how to interface with my business partners. One is new, one is old. And then just kind of like figuring out what our team dynamics are, where we all sit. So I'm growing, I'm learning, and I had a great week.
Poor Erinn getting checks so many different ways. It's raining checks, and it's unfortunate that you have to deal with this.
Not quite, but soon.
Cool. All right. Well, who wants to kick it off? Who wants to kick off the first topic?
I just need to issue an apology for my sarcasm. I don't know if you saw that, but there was, every now and then there's a troll that breaks through the noise, and someone was like, "Man, Payne, you on that gay shit, and you don't actually make beats for a living," and it was hilarious. So, and there were like 10 tweets coming from this dude, all of which he deleted, and like it was a fake profile because these dudes are cowards, and it was this kid that just wanted to say a bunch of R-word stuff because I can't say the word because YouTube algorithm always. We mentioned R-word, RACI or RACE in our last episode, and the numbers they went down. It went down the toilet, so we can't mention. But
does YouTube really do that?
Evidently, because every time we do that, it happens. So anyway, that's
on YouTube. Love that page. That was
that can't be a word that just like tanks your. I mean, there's hella content around. Now you got me not wanting to say it because.
I want to talk about things that I want to talk about, but I'm just trying to be careful here because that episode tanked. And there was no reason for it to, other than that. So, and it happens consistently with our podcast. I don't know. Maybe it's just this particular SEO for our podcast episodes, but something is going on. So, but let me take my tinfoil hat off. So this gentleman is just, like an all around quintessential incel troll. And so I retweeted him telling me that I was lying about making music for a living, blah, blah, blah. So, and I sarcastically said, "Hey guys, I have to apologize. I've been an electrician this whole time. I've just been lying. I hope to be better and grow moving forward." And I thought it was clear that it was a joke, but it wasn't. And I had people reaching out and like thanking me for being honest. And one guy tried to actually hire me to rewire some stuff in his house. So I don't know. This is like a "Am I the asshole" Reddit thread. Am I the asshole for that? I don't know. Should I apologize for that? I was like transmuting troll energy into humor, and then this happens, and now I'm the troll. So sorry guys, I make beats. I don't. You don't want me in your house messing with your circuit breaker. You really don't.
Shout out to all the electricians though.
Oh, they're making more money than music producers. Look, if you're on the fence between going into a trade like, plumbing or being an electrician, or you want to get into the electrical engineering field versus production, do both. I don't think you have to choose one or the other, but certainly don't lean in all the way to production if given the choice and you have the talent and passion to do both. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, music production is a lot less in demand than an electrician or a plumber or an arborist, by the way.
Dope. All right, well, let's get it. Erinn, why don't you kick it off? What's your topic?
So I have a topic from our boy Rob Avlo. One day I'm going to meet him and be like, "Hey, I read your tweets and your newsletter regularly," or emails. I don't know if they call those newsletters anymore. And I think this one is fascinating because, clicked on the wrong, because it's something that I've been saying for a while. And I think that a lot of people, including Dame, don't like that I say it. But I feel like it's being supported by the numbers. So last week, Rob Abloh said there's no one major company responsible for delivering music to listeners whose primary revenue comes from selling music. They sell subscriptions, Spotify, devices, Apple, search, Google, shipping, Amazon, or attention, TikTok and Meta. So he goes into a thread about that, and a lot of people are somewhat refuting it and kind of asking questions, and a lot of people are really agreeing with it. My thought process here goes back into what I say about music for artists now, looking at it as part of your offering, not your offering, looking at it as a loss leader or something that may not lose money per se, but isn't making you the most out of your offering. It's just your what grabs the most attention. And so he also recently tweeted about UMG's numbers, where they're at, where streaming is in the world. And I find it interesting to think about this from a global standpoint. Like, where is music headed if all the people that we think about who are considered music companies don't actually make the bulk of their revenue from music? And that's kind of the question that I'm asking here. I do know like distributors are making money from music, studios are making money from music. A lot of producers are making money from music.
He wouldn't consider a subscription selling music? Then what is the subscription for?
Well, especially with Spotify now, there's subscription bundles, podcasts as well. I do agree that the vast majority of users are listening to music with their subscription. But like for me, my example is that I pay for a family subscription, and my mom nor dad never listen to freaking Spotify. So I'm paying for a subscription whether I consume the music or not. Now, I consume the music, but even Netflix, I pay for Netflix and I don't watch. I think I watch Netflix maybe once or twice every 60 to 90 days.
It doesn't disprove his point, but I would push back on that a little bit. That's like saying I bought a ticket to Magic Mountain but didn't ride the ride. Like, you still bought the ticket. Like,
yeah, but you're not buying the ride. You're buying that's why I agree with this. Because if you're buying the subscription and never using it, you're not selling music. You're selling access to music.
At that point, his point's probably still valid, but what are we arguing for at that point? Like, you're selling access to the CD. I just didn't listen to the CD. Like, I bought the CD, but I didn't listen to it, so you didn't actually sell me the music. Like, what are we?
I guess. I think it's like buying an iPod versus a CD, though. When you buy an iPod, you're buying a mechanism to play the music. Do you know what I'm saying? When you buy a CD, you're buying the recorded music. And maybe I'm just viewing this differently, but I don't see Spotify likening to a CD because the sales it doesn't equate at all. Do you know what I'm saying? Because if I buy a CD, that's trackable and it equates to a sale of music. If I buy a subscription to Spotify, it doesn't equate to music being listened to or art. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't equate, making it smaller, it doesn't equate to artists being paid. It equates to Spotify being paid, which is why I feel like is the differentiator.
Okay. So his overall point is that he's saying that maybe that's the problem because the music itself isn't being sold. But like, what's the next? Okay, so that means,
well, wait. Let me parse through this because I'm not quite understanding this. So, Universal Music Group is reporting slow growth, but not a loss, and that is causing investors to dump their stock. This is your universe, Dame. I don't understand what that really means or why stuff like that's happening.
Where's that piece?
It was another one where he said Universal Music Group what did he say? Something about there's a 25% loss in value because they only experienced 3.8% growth the most recent quarter.
To me, this is fairly positive, right? Like, physical is going up, merchandise is up, free streaming is down because that's what you get paid the least from. Like, paid streaming is up, that's what you get paid more from. Recorded music, to me, I don't know what his secondary point is, or like, he's just presenting the numbers. To me, these look relatively positive. I don't know what his takeaway was, but like
he had a couple takeaways, and I feel like they are. I agree with you, Dame. They are kind of contradictory because one of the takeaways was that fans want more from streaming, when I feel as though the paid streaming growth number contradicts that.
Well, I think Spotify is, doing more. They strive to do more to provide more of an experience, whether it's adding video, whether it's adding like touring and merchandise. And I know they just rolled out like a countdown feature for music. Like they're adding more tools. I'm not going to go as far as to give you any data for sure, but they're definitely adding more tools for both the artist experience and the fan experience. So what is this? Music fans want more than what streaming has to offer, something connective, immersive, and collectible that's a deeper experience in the artist world. The door is wide open for new formats. Cool. I see this all as I don't see anything negative here. I see it all like positive from an independent artist perspective. So am I not?
Well, yeah, there's his tweet about UMG's share price going down, but I imagine this happens all the time. It's up and down. It's up and down. I think he's connecting.
Yeah, I don't give a shit about their share price, and neither should an independent artist. Like, why? Oh well, sounds like.
Well, he's connecting all of this to streaming, right? So basically, placing streaming at the center of everybody's revenue models, which to an extent it is. I mean, for the majors at least, the majors really went all in on streaming because it has profited them to do so, and. What is he saying? That there's a trouble in paradise when it comes to putting streaming at the center of your revenue model. And I think it sounds to me like he's saying, all right, artists, that you can, if you're unsigned, you can do a lot. You just have to create immersive experiences. And I don't think that indicates that streaming is on its way out or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, Erinn, what was your interest in presenting? Like, what did you take away from it, or what did you want to highlight from this messaging?
I think my only highlight is that what I always say, I think that artists need to have more diverse offerings, because I see music as a loss leader or a net neutral, but which is what a lot, not a lot, but a handful of people said in the comments. But I was more so posing the question, what does this implicate or identify or show is happening in the music industry right now? I had posed the question maybe a couple months ago. I'm like, is it possible for somebody to make a living off of music if they start today? And I wasn't saying it from a negative perspective. I was saying I'm just unsure how to cut through the noise and make revenue off of your music, like from 0 to 6 figures in a day and time like today. And I'm saying strictly music. I know how to grow a creator right now. I understand how to make money off of brand deals and partnerships and stuff like that. But I'm still wondering, what does this implicate for the overall creator economy? And I know, Dame, you said you work with creators all the time who are streaming well. So it's not specifically a streaming conversation, just an ask, like, what does this say about the music industry if the biggest music companies aren't even making most of their money off of music? my takeaway and thought process is that this is why artist solutions are deprioritized. I think this is why it is difficult for certain things to cut through, or for artists to find opportunities, which is why there's a necessity for things like what we're doing and the Digilog and the tour that you're about to have. I think that there's a necessity for artists to have resources so that they can grow their assets in the music business. But I just, it was just interesting to me to read that. I'm like, oh, damn, the people who are like the music companies or making music, that's just one of their offerings. So I think that's why it's so, like, when artists are like, this is unfair to us and this doesn't do us right, they're like, oh, okay, cool. They don't care because there could be a riot, but their offerings pay them from so many different points. I don't think they super care about the creator economy.
Well, these aren't the music. I mean, I guess you can call them music tech company. These aren't the music company. They're not making the music, right? These are like the companies that deliver us the music. What I would tell independent artists is remind them once again, like there are a lot of artists making a shitload of money from streams, but it's always try to stay a step ahead, right? To me, once you see people flocking to things, I would be thinking differently, right? No disrespect to Even, but it's like, okay, Even, everybody's flocking to Even to do these drops, and it might work for a certain amount of time, but essentially you got to really think, like, all this really is direct to fan. Like, we just did a direct-to-fan web series and was very successful. Doesn't really matter the platform. I mean, there's certain platforms might have different tools, but it's really the idea and the concept. Always try to stay a step ahead and don't just take kind of what everybody's doing and try to apply it to yours. Like, I've talked to some very creative, independent artists in the past year, and it's really about like your community and coming up with an experience that makes sense for that specific community and what they rock with, right? So it doesn't matter that, you can take some things from Russell or some other artists, but what does your community care about? What can you come up with as a product to sell to them? Queen Herbie decided that she can sell chewed gum to them for $100 a pop and just shellac her chewed gum. Like, you probably can't do that. Like, that's not what your community is going to rock with, right? So you have to get creative. Once you see hella people start to do something, once you start to see hella people start to like try to sell NFTs, it was typically a wrap. Once we saw hella people started, doing Kickstarter campaigns. So now it's like all these membership based, these group things. Like, think about, like, people aren't going to want to subscribe to like 30 different like membership based things. That doesn't mean you shouldn't start one, but does your community want that? What kind of experience does your community want? So I always would try to stay a step ahead of some of the like hot things that are happening and that you start to see a bunch of other artists do. And like, how can you either do it differently or how can you do something else completely?
Yeah. And that really is based on you knowing who your community is and figuring out what their needs are, which a lot of artists don't do, but a lot of people are still caught up on building their community or even identifying ways to build their community. And unfortunately, they get stuck at that point. And so then this conversation is something that they never even have to have with themselves. So I think we talk about that a lot. But yeah, a lot of people are stuck in their driveways. They haven't even put the key in the ignition. And I think, you might not know where you're going. You probably don't know where you're going in this musical journey. Just get out the driveway first and take a look at the scenery and figure it out. You know what I mean? In other words, start putting music out. Stop all that perfection paralysis, which is hard for artists to overcome, because we want to drop something that's going to be perfect. It's going to be an instant classic. It's going to be an instant hit. And that's never how it happens. People think that's how it happens. That's why I can't stand all this stuff. Oh, God. Social media is really fucking people's heads up. Virality is really fucking artists' heads up. Because anytime an artist who's been working, it happened with Macklemore. You know, oh my God, thrift shop came out of nowhere. It's an industry plant. Like, no, he's been touring for 10 years. Said the same thing about Tommy Richmond. They're saying the same thing about pretty much every new artist that suddenly has a hit. But it's like, that's how it happens. You work for years and years and years, and you're slowly ascending. And generally people, you know, the mainstream never hears about you. And so this conversation doesn't even happen about you, at least. But for those of you who suddenly shoot up with some sudden success, either viral or otherwise, everyone looks at you like, who is this person? This had to have happened overnight. And then the overnight success narrative comes in, and it's a mess because then artists believe it. So then we're out here moving like everything has to be $1 million baby moment. And that's just not the reality of how the music business works.
Yeah. Anything else to conclude from this, Erinn?
I like the Payne's get out the driveway. It's so important because I think even some people get comfortable with just having a car. You know, I had a couple of friends when I was in high school, their parents were like super dope to them, and they would buy them a car as an incentive for them to go get their license. I wish I had that. I had my license, was ready to drive, and my parents were like, you can borrow the car occasionally. But they would literally just go sit in the car, listen to music, take pictures in front of it. But they were just like, I'm like, that's why your parents shouldn't have bought you a car. You got, you know, too much access anyways. I'm seeing artists do that right now. Happy that they have a car. When you were 16, even 17, that was cute, but you're grown. And when I say grown, I'm saying like analogously, like you've had this car for a minute. You got to get out. And then, you know, I think that people are just like, well, driving's different now. I don't really want to get on the road because people drive recklessly now. I don't want to crash my car, which is, you know, like the perfectionism. But I'm not even saying just releasing the music. I think a lot of artists, if they can't release music and then tour, they're like, they feel like I don't want to do anything but those two things. And it's so many ways to interface with your fans. I was listening to Key Henderson's interview with the One More Time podcast, and she was just basically saying, like, maybe you just do a movie day. Like, maybe you're like, hey, I'll be in this city. Anybody who wants to watch a movie with me. And she was like, you know, maybe it's 5 or 10 people, but then, you know, that's really your fan base. And the guys are asking, like, why do more artists not do it? She said, because they're pride. I do agree that it's pride, but I think most artists aren't thinking that way. Most artists aren't thinking, how can I give my fans a micro experience? They're thinking, how can I be worshipped? How can I be on stage and have the cool Instagram moment? How can I get more? And it's like, you get more with less. If you start with the small things, it's going to continuously elevate. It's just a principle of life. But if you're just waiting for the giant pop, you're slowly killing your audience base, because the ones you want to tour because you saw one person tweet, when are you touring again? And so you're holding on to that. Meanwhile, 10, 15, 30, 100 other fans like me who are waiting for you just to do something interesting are losing our interest and going on to somebody else who's doing something interesting with a smaller fan base. So I think the car analogy is really interesting and fascinating to me. I think you got to get out. If you're still sitting in your driveway and I'm walking down the block, I'm beating you. And I think sometimes people just want that huge burst, that huge moment. And it's like, you could walk and still get further than where you are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Dame, do you want to talk Don Cannon? I'm excited for this topic because Dame finally chose a topic that has to do with producers. You're muted, Dame. I knew this moment would be ruined.
That's why you're here, Payne. So you could. I don't think from a producer perspective, because I'm not one. So that's why you are here, to add the producer flavor to the podcast. But this definitely isn't just a producer topic. It's more broad than that. So go ahead and play the clip. And I definitely want to hear what you guys think about this.
Like, a lot of people say that, like, they're kind of, done with hip hop because pop gets paid better, or like they never have like problems getting paid on time.
If I had to say, for the majority of pop in those other genres. Not all of them, but most of them have a plan before they make an album. In hip hop, we're all magic. It's whatever feels good. Like Katy Perry, when she's going into an album, she has this idea in her mind that Dr. Luke and Max Martin are doing my album, the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go pay them. You're executive producing my album. I'm going to do 12 songs, and that's that. She works with them for 6 months. They do an album, that's that. In hip hop, we'll have an album of 17 songs, and it'll be 25 producers. Of course, there's going to be issues. Everybody got their own idea of how their business supposed to be done.
My immediate reaction to hearing that is like, that's an excuse. That is definitely an excuse. You know, that might be how pop records are done. But again, we're taking people, we're giving people an out here for like not knowing the business, not doing good business, not communicating well. Like whether it's a single or an album, you know, it should be, you should have some understanding of how things work. You should understand publishing versus masters. So you should have that conversation of like how things will be divvied up. I was in a conversation yesterday, unfortunately, with some folks here at Two Laws that needed to pull a project down because, you know, they had some issues with the producer and they were going back and forth. So the end result was, all right, we'll just take it down, right? Because it wasn't either in this situation, I think the person changed up because there was no paperwork. It was just all verbal. And then they decided to change what they were comfortable with. And then it just led to no music being put out. But to me, this is an excuse. And, you know, but would love to hear what your guys' reaction was when you heard what he just said.
Oh, producers can mess a project up because I love producers. I advocate for producers, but especially after this recent video, I don't know if you saw it. It went viral. Kyle Beats dropped a video where he was talking about how one of his samples got stolen, and it was for that Mexican OT's biggest hit, Johnny Dang. And man, the comments, producers don't know anything about the music business or intellectual property. And I think if I'm on a project with a producer like that and they're involved in the album somehow, there's a high potential they're going to mess this entire thing up. They're going to mess the business up. They're going to delay the album. Something bad's going to happen if these producers are involved. So I understand what Don Cannon is saying on that level, but I have way more to say. Erinn, what are your reactions?
I don't know. I don't want to say that Don Cannon hasn't worked in different genres. I know him from hip hop and R&B, but it feels like it came from an assumptive place. Like I worked in rock music, and I will agree that different genres approach producing projects differently. The other genres that I've worked in are more on the urban side, so Afrobeat, reggaeton, gospel, R&B, hip hop, right? So rock would be my closest to pop, and we did a couple pop records on that. So there had to be a plan, but those projects and records are way more expensive, like just by the sheer nature of how you have to do them. So I think that to overstate the plan and understate the privilege of what hip hop's approach gets to have, I think you're having two different conversations. In rock music, the first album we had the full band, but by the second album it was just the lead singer and the bass player, so we had to bring in session musicians. But even with the full band, it's like we have to pay for actual studio time. You're not recording this album in a house. You can, and we had done some like live house recordings, but like to get the quality that you want to play on the radio, you got to be in the studio, and you have to have the right producer. It's not just my homeboy is producing or my homeboy owns a studio. You have to have somebody who really knows how to record. The reason I hate studios is because I worked in rock music first. Like I hate going to the studio. We would sit and do snare tone for 2 hours. Like 2 hours. Do you tracking out rock? That stuff takes a long time. Okay, so my point here is that you're saying they go in with a plan, but it's because it's a whole different approach to make you have to go in with a plan because you're spending so much money up front. the beauty of hip hop and approaching from such a like, oh, this is magic, is that there's not a lot of cost involved. It can be expensive, but you can just do stuff at your house with your home studio. You can have a concept where you rap a song and then send it to somebody and they make a beat around it. I think that business is just business, and you have to have the conversations ahead of time or know what you're functioning on. And I think in that aspect, in that sense, you have to be willing to burn songs or let stuff go. In rock music, we had to go in with a plan because, at least for me, when we started, we couldn't afford to burn stuff. We burned like 4 or 5 songs across 4 years, and every time it hurt. Every time I was pissed because it was so expensive just to get to that one song being completed. Or if we didn't release on schedule, I'm like, man, it took us 6 months to get here. We had to do all of this stuff. But I think with hip hop, the opportunity to release so quickly, to record and release so quickly also opens up a lot of doors, which is why the genre is so massive, which is why we dominate in places. So I don't like it because it feels like it's painted in a way that could be, I can't say the word because of what we mentioned up front, but it almost feels like it could jump into that conversation too when you're comparing pop to hip hop. Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying every hip hop record is cheap to make. I'm just saying by and large, it's way less expensive to, even when we were bringing in session musicians and getting side artist agreements, I had to do so much paperwork up front to get a rock record done. So I will agree with you. Different genres come in with a plan, but that's not, I think he's trying to make one thing equal something else. And I can't necessarily agree with that. I just think people need to have their business conversations. I do think that hip hop could do better from having a plan, but there's millions of examples daily where people come in with a plan and they do well. So I just think there's a huge influx of hip hop artists. Do you know what I'm saying? Whereas there's not like a shit ton of rock bands releasing as much. Everybody's releasing, every genre is releasing consistently, but there's not as much of that happening because there's other stuff. And then even with pop, I think that's a weird genre because I know a handful of pop artists who are just getting tracks, recording at their house and releasing. It's not comparing Katy Perry to my homie in Atlanta it's just like a weird, you know what I'm saying? But shout out to Don Cannon. I'm not refuting everything he's saying. I just think it's like apples and oranges.
I just don't want people to think like, because eventually people will just say, oh, why I'm in hip hop and just kind of give up, just like this is the way it is. Like you can keep your house in order, no matter what anybody is doing in any genre. Like keep your house in order. Make sure that you're educated on how things are supposed to happen. And when you work with someone new, you should have that conversation. This is how I do things. This is what I do before I even, step into the room, or once it gets recorded. This is how, and have it as early as possible. Get it in writing, so that things don't happen on the back end that are negative. You have to start pulling music down. Relationships get torn apart. Like it shouldn't be that difficult, right? But I just don't like how they place it on a genre of music and be like, because then that's going to just make people kind of throw up their hands and not try to fix certain situations. That's just like it's the same thing that what happens with artists when we tell them like, hey, artists don't know the business. Like some artists think they're not supposed to know the business. Like I'm just supposed to work on the music because that's kind of what they hear or whatever. That's keep your house in order, no matter what anybody's doing in the industry. That's kind of what my mindset was coming from corporate to the music industry, knowing that the music industry at times is less professional, doesn't show up on time. I don't care what anybody else is doing. We're showing up on time. I don't care what everybody else is doing. I'm returning these emails and I'm getting back to people. I know that's not how everybody moves in the industry, but we're going to keep our house in order. And that's how everybody should be looking at it.
Yeah. To follow up what both of you were saying, I mean, I think ironically pop tries to model itself after hip hop, or they try to manufacture the energy of what hip hop is, how spontaneous it is. They try to make it sound like that. And in reality, that's not what they're doing. They're just, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not giving the labels a pass. because this is a situation that they fully take advantage of. The fact that there are so many producers right now, whereas 30 years ago in hip hop, yeah, you did lock in with one producer. You had an executive producer. You're recording in one studio. Now everyone's a producer. Everyone has a recording studio in their house. So things are different, and the labels take advantage of that because they know rappers, certain EDM producers, certain what they don't even call it pop. They call it bedroom pop because pop means popular and bedroom pop is an entirely separate genre. So you can't compare a bedroom pop artist to a Katy Perry until she becomes a Billie Eilish. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, granted, you have 25 producers on a project. 10 of them might be brand new. They don't know what they're doing. They don't understand the music business. They could mess everything up. But the label's going to take that chance because the costs are so low. And they're going to drop the music anyway. They don't give a fuck what the producers have to say. They're going to drop it and they're going to deal with the shit later. So it is a frustrating situation, but I also feel like the fact that rap is being made so quickly means that, you know, pop, you can't get in a pop session if you're new. There's no way. But new producers in hip hop and in certain subgenres of EDM can emerge every month. You know what I mean? Because it's a little more welcoming, for better or worse. And all I'm saying is the labels take advantage of it because a rapper can come out and record, flood the market, and therefore they have a higher chance of some of those songs doing well because they're able to put out more work. They're able to take advantage of their spontaneous creativity on the spot. So then the labels just see what's working and say, okay, we're just going to give them $500,000 and we're going to make money off of this song or this body of work that's already generating money, and we don't have to do much. With pop, they have to hire vocal producers. They have to lock in with us. And most of these pop artists are signed to producers anyway. You know, like Don Cannon brought up Katy Perry. She's signed to Dr. Luke. Of course, Dr. Luke's executive producing her album. Of course, it's going to sound cohesive. Of course, the power in that situation is centralized. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, it's such a different process. She's not only the only songwriter. It's not like rap where it's like some 17-year-old kid from Chicago who writes everything, does everything himself in his bedroom and is getting beats online. So his last mixtape had 17 different producers on it. This is a very different scenario. And I'm not responding to anything Don Cannon's saying by going on my rant. I'm just talking about the overall way that record labels operate now with regards to the way music is created in rap versus pop. Very, very different, but at the end of the day, the label knows how to play each genre for their own benefit.